Strickland versus Hermansson. We just saw them go 25 minutes. Initial thoughts on Strickland, just his skill set, his stance. Let's get to the technical side, right? Like just how he fights, man. It's unique, right?
It is very unique. Like, he has that like low lead hand, rather than carrying the jab or measuring his distance with his lead hand, which a lot of fighters do, hold like a long lead hand, paw and jab, which Jack Hermansson was fighting like that. Like, he'll just have that low lead hand, sharp eyes. Like, to have that kind of style where your lead hand is like in here and that tight and that low, you have to have a good gauge of distance, which he obviously does have, because he spends, like, as he says, all he does is spar. Like, he spends his time sparring a majority of the time. So he's getting those reflexes and getting those kind of reactions. Sharp jab, and just working off that jab. Like, everything comes off of that jab. And that was dominant. That was a very dominant display from that fight, just controlling the entire tempo. He controlled the fight with his jab. I know there was a split decision. I'm not going to get like too much into that. Like, I'm not super offended by that, because Strickland, although I feel like it was dominant and he was controlling it, he didn't have to come out of first or second gear. He was in like first or second gear the entire fight, controlling it. Jack Hermansson had a higher work rate. Like, that guy was in the fight. He was pushing the takedowns. He was throwing more kicks. Like, he was definitely working harder. Like, Jack Hermansson was in fourth or fifth gear for a majority of that fight, whereas Sean was just getting away with coasting. So I can understand it, because the work rate was there. There's like one guy was obviously working harder to try and get the win, but it just wasn't enough. He was being outclassed and controlled by the jab.
Do you think if Hermansson would have won this fight, right, on the judges' score, would that be justified?
Oh, then it would have been a bit much for me, but I could definitely understand it. I could definitely just because Jack Hermansson, like the amount of effort like he was putting into it. And it's funny when you're sitting there, like, it's so different. Just because while I was in Vegas, I spent so much time actually in the Apex, like watching Contender Series, like watching these fights, compared with watching on the TV. And it is so different being cage side as opposed to watching something on the television, because you can definitely like see the strike, but it's different when you're in the Apex and you're cage side, and you can hear the strikes land. Like, you might on TV, you're like, what? Why did that guy? Even the Figueiredo Moreno one, that is a big one for me, because a lot of people are like, man, Moreno was in that fight and this and that. But obviously the judges there, that like they can hear it. Like, it's like that. It's like when a fist like bounces off a guy's head, it's loud. It's not it's not a quiet thing whatsoever. So when you are sitting cage side and you can hear that leg kick, and you can see like the subtle things where a guy like doesn't react, he doesn't do like a big thing, but he'll pause for a second, or his jaw will clench, or like the corner of his eye will squint. it's just a whole different ball game. So I'm always try not to be like hypercritical of judges when they give a decision one way or another, because it is a completely different world when you are sitting cage side. And maybe that's not even an answer to like the judging is, or have a clearer thing. It's maybe add some things to the broadcast that give the fan a deeper idea of what's going on. I don't know whether that's put a mic on the something that picks up the sound of those shots landing on the referee, or something like that, where you can really pick up that subtle stuff, or really hear that in-person kind of crash or crunch or reaction, which you just cannot see on the TV at the moment.
Thank you guys for watching the video to the end. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content that we're putting out. We got a lot of things in the works, so please stay tuned.